Did
Yeah, if
is
you're left alone, then and yeah, you have to rely on living there, and that's what happened. I got dengue, which is like a kind of similar like malaria disease.
you got it?
Yeah, and I was like only 10 days after coming back from the rainforest, I got really really sick. I was in hospital, and actually then my life.
Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. I don't know, maybe your most true, authentic voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, change the world, make billions of dollars. Can't guarantee those last two, but we're working on it. And in the meantime, we love that you keep watching, listening, subscribing, telling your friends. The reason I believe all of that is happening is that we get to continue to bring people onto the show who walk the walk, who understand their own arc to authenticity, and hopefully at the end of the game, at the end of the show, that we get to make the world a little bit better of a place. And I feel very confident in that last part. Matthieu Mehuys joins me today, and I'm really happy to have you on board. Matthieu, welcome to the show.
John, thank you for having me. What a great introduction. I love your energy. Exciting.
I'm very grateful for that. Hey, and folks, you picked a good one, since we've got Matthieu happens to be an award-winning author. The book, and we will touch on that later in the episode too, 12 Universal Laws to Nature. How to use your land to its full potential is a big deal. We've got somebody who absolutely understands the multiple values of landscaping, not just the beautification, but the giving back part. And my man also happens to be a podcast host. The show is Regenerative. I never get that word out right. Regenerative Design Podcast. And so, hey, I sometimes have to hit that a couple of times. But the passion in the landscape, and we were talking about backstages, what really matters, I think it's the passion part. Matthieu, I know that it says in your bio that you talk about that you've been drawn to landscaping as you were a young child in Belgium. Why do you think that pulled you?
That's a great question, John, and not so easy to answer. Why? I don't know. It might be predestined, but to tell you my backstory, it all started when I was 3 to 5 years old, growing up on a farm, surrounded by my father growing plants, and we also had cattle, or we still have today. My brother and father are still farmers, and so I grew up fascinated by how plants can grow. Like, what a crazy world do we live in, that you put a seed in the soil, it can grow into a magnificent plant. That was like my earliest fascination ever. So, and then I continued on, and I said to my parents, I want to grow my own food by the time I was 5. And they said, we don't have time for that, we don't have place, because the farm was mostly cattle and big cash crops. But I persisted, and eventually they gave me a piece of land. I did my gardening attempts, and I failed. I grew more weeds than I was growing anything else, and that devastated me. And that was my first failure in life. And only later in life, when I then continued, like through my adolescence,
Sure,
I continued to study landscape architecture because I had that inborn passion. And it was only when I actually graduated from my master degrees that I said, okay, I did a master's in Germany. I'm gonna travel the world and experience some new places. So I did a permaculture design course in India. And then it started to click. I started to really, and obviously it was connecting the dots from all the other experiences that I had. But there it clicked that I started to understand how nature works. And then I went on, I got into my 9-to-5 job, even though I understood now how it works. But I got into the 9-to-5 thing because I thought that was what I should be doing. And I got into my job. By 2.5 years, I'm like half depressed. I'm struggling. I'm like, I really, the companies that I worked for, but it was not my thing to be in the 9 to 5
Right.
system, especially in Germany, very bureaucratic, but very grateful for the experience. And then I did a world travel. I quit my job, I took my backpack, and I traveled the whole world to find amazing places that are doing good for the planet, because that was always like, I was interested in it. You know, we grew up in the 90s, 2000, Al Gore, the inconvenient truth. We're like, shit, okay, we have a problem with the world. Okay, what can we do? So that became somewhat my passion from that early, and it wasn't so much focusing on the bad stuff. It was always from that passion to create something beautiful, unique, gardening, edible plants, like creating a connection with nature. That's the most important thing. So then, long story short, I started my own business where we do garden design. From that experience, we now also teach people online how to design and create their own garden. So yeah, there's a bunch of things that I'm focusing on. Well, not too many things because I have to be careful what to pick. But I'm passionate about gardens, farming, and how people can reconnect with nature with something that is very accessible.
You said a couple of things that I'm walking backwards towards. Number one, I almost groaned when you said Al Gore's book. And the reason I say that is I find him to be a really visionary man. And I also, sadly, being born and living in the United States, I don't think he was taken nearly as seriously enough as he should be. I think he is brilliant in regards to in that book especially, and I'm grateful actually that you referenced it, simply because I think more that should be brought to life more often, not less. So that, to me, I only groan because I feel like everyone should. It to me, I'm biased, but I would say it should be required reading, because not just.
The only problem I have, John, I want to jump in with.
Yeah, do it.
That paradigm is so focused on we humans are bad and we're destroying the planet. That's very, very. It's good to find the problem statement, let's say, but then what? If you keep focusing on humans are bad, we should stop industrialization. We should that's not really the solution, because you're focusing on the problems. And I figured out, if we want to change human behaviors, if you focus on the problems, it only gets worse. That's what's been happening since the 50s. We knew already since 1800, actually, 1900,
right,
that the industrialization was having a bad impact on the environment. And there's I can tell you, there's really, especially in the last 5 to 10, there's really good movements happening. But that, I think, all originates from entrepreneurs that decide, like, okay, I'm sick and tired of hearing all these promises, and we should do 20% less emissions, which, okay, I value that. And again, what Al Gore did, it's important. It's half of the work to find the problem. But then if we stop there, we're never going to get this thing solved. We need to look on what's working and how we can build from that. And yeah, that's what I'm most passionate about, is to go beyond this problem statement.
And finger pointing and that sort of thing. Very cool. Let me ask you this. You would also talked about, too, that I've never been to India. And I'm always fascinated when people go, because speaking of the sense of people either pointing out problems or the situations, what was the experience there like for you?
Oh, India is their tagline is "Incredible India," and it's so true. When you have to go there to experience it, because it's wildly divided. It's really incredible. It can be incredibly dirty. It can be beautiful. It can be incredibly rich, incredibly poor. So you have really big extremes. But at the same time, it's a nation of people that also to get things done. I've seen like documentaries of they had struggles with water problems in certain regions in India, and then they decided, okay, let's just get the whole community together to dig huge ponds. Now, like, imagine 10,000 of people digging out ponds with their bare hands. 1 year later, they have like a whole aquifer and fresh water and a new ecosystem, and their farming is super productive and nature based. So I think when countries like India, when they make changes, it can go very fast. And for us as a Western country to tell them like, hey, you should not be polluting and should not be doing that, it's like, yeah, we did it and now we're going to tell you how to do it. I think that doesn't work. In fact, I've heard a very interesting, very controversial statement that someone was saying that we should actually stimulate developing countries to burn faster through their fossil fuels, to do it even faster so they can move faster to the new technologies. And that's actually what's happening in India. Our industrial revolution took 100 in the Western world. Let's say it took 100 years to where we are today or more. They probably did it in 20. So they're now focusing a lot on green, faster green technologies and making a green economy, because it's not just about, okay, we are green. It's really about being more productive, being more economically viable, more profitable. Like these are all the things that nature can provide when used correctly.
When you were in India, in terms of from a nature perspective, and I really appreciate the fact, because I believe it, is that sense of half this and half that, and people then literally coming together to create a new ecostructure or ecosystem, I mean, within a year. Did you see any of this? Did you see it in place? And if you did, what was that feeling like?
Oh yeah, I was actually working in a project. So this was back in the days. I had just graduated um, my master degree, and I was like, okay, I want to travel and learn about permaculture. So I took the course and I volunteered also there. So I was working in a garden project, and we
Okay.
completely remodeled it. And yeah, it you can get things done in India quite fast. It's pretty cool.
It's amazing to me. That's amazing to me. So you make a call to travel the world, if I heard you correctly, right? What were a couple of places that stood out to you for the good or for potential rather than the bad? What, you know what I mean? Like where did you see is, oh, they've got this figured out? And was there another place where you're like, okay, they probably need a little more education or whatever in regards to the sense of rebuild?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's not so much like country-wise, it's more like projects popping up like
Okay.
mushrooms in any country. Even
Right.
in the US, your country is doing amazingly when it comes down to regenerative farming, even though you might think like the US is polluting or they're very high emissions, and that's what people might think, especially in Europe, we might think that. But you're actually doing a lot of great work when it comes down to farming. You have actually the most famous farmer, Joel Salatin, the lunatic farmer. If you haven't heard about him, you should check him out.
Definitely worth checking out. Yep.
It's amazing what he's doing. But then I think an amazing country is Costa Rica. They had such a unique country. Like they were the first country or to abandon. They abandoned their army in the 1950s, and they're surrounded by dangerous countries like yeah, really dangerous countries with drugs, and they just decided, okay, we're gonna remove our army and we're just gonna be a country about peace and nature. And up until the 50s, they had actually cut down more than half the rainforest. And they decided, like, hey, now we're going to stop this because this is our asset. This is why people used to come to Costa Rica. It's for the beauty, the nature. And they also got the whole population together. And still today, I met some people of my age. So I'm in my 30s. They said, yeah, when we grew up, what we did is we replanted. We were every weekend, it was fun. We got together with friends. There was organization. So they completely replanted their rainforests, and they're seeing the results. It's actually a quite expensive country to visit when you want to travel, but it's super safe. It's beautiful. So I think that's a great place to live. But then anywhere in the world, there's people that even in countries that might be outwardly they might say, okay, this is a bad example or there's bad governance. There's still many projects of people that are just like from the ground up, we're going to do it. Because that's, I think, what real change can come from both sides, right? From the top down or from the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, most of the things have happened from bottom up and not from top down.
So when did you realize you were going to need to do something about this rather than just seeing things and appreciating and sensing and knowing? When did you think you had to jump into the fray too?
I love this question, John, because it wasn't that obvious in a way, because I was traveling the world for 1.5 years. I had my backpack. I was doing a freelance job for a German company working in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
But I was only working on my laptop and I was living the good life. My intention was to visit places, and I did that, and I saw many places. I learned a lot. But then on one of my trips, I said, okay, I'm going to extend my travel. I'm going to travel another year because it's so amazing. And then I went to the Amazon rainforest in Ecuador, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. It's like you go there, and I went deep, deep, deep inside the rainforest because I found an amazing guide that worked for National Geographic that you can't find him anywhere. I just got him through like a contact. You need to travel like 20 hours to get to the most pristine part of the Amazon rainforest. And I got like a 5-day guide with this guide, and it was just amazing. The amount of animals that we saw, like 10, 20 different monkeys, dolphins in the water, because there's a lot of water and rivers, crocodiles, birds that I hadn't seen in my life. And even we saw even a tapir, which is a small elephant, which is extremely rare. It's pretty much impossible to see them because they're so rare. And they're very sensitive. So it's like a small elephant, and I saw it in the nature. And I think, again, I can only connect the dot. Well, I didn't say that yet, but it's this famous quote from Steve Jobs: you can only connect the dots looking backwards. Because I did my travel there, and what happened is that in the Amazon rainforest is a beautiful place, but it's also a very hostile place for humans.
Well, that's what I want to ask you. Did there's a fear thing that I'm sensing?
If you're left alone, then you have to rely on living there, and that's what happened. I got dengue, which is like a kind of similar like malaria disease.
You got it.
Yeah, and I was only 10 days after coming back from the rainforest, I got really, really sick. I was in hospital, and actually then my life went south. Like I had been traveling, so I was already losing most of my money, and then my girlfriend dumped me. There was like a lot of things like ding, 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 ding. I was like rock bottom after that. And I see it as a beautiful gift that Mother Nature gave me as a wake-up call. Like, hey, you've been traveling the world, you've seen many places, you gathered enough information, now go and do something with it. So from that rock bottom, I said, okay, this is an opportunity. And it's easier said than done, right? And at that very moment, it wasn't that easy. But I said, okay, let's build everything from the ground up, and let's do it properly. Like build a good foundation. And I said, what do I really want to do? I want to create beautiful places. I want to have an impact in the world, because we need to create a better world. And I want to help people to achieve that. So, and then from that, I founded my business, Palonia Landscape Architects, where we design ecological gardens that are also beautiful and that are also productive. And on top of that, they're also low maintenance.
So stay with me.
This is impossible.
I want to come to there, but before I want to stay, I'm going back to the rainforest for a moment before we're there, because this matters to me. Like the bravery part, I'm going back to. So you're aware of the dangers of it. What gave you the bravery to keep going?
Oh, for me, there was no bravery. I'm just like, this is
Why
where
did you have to go in? What was it?
Why?
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what it was like. You see these documentaries, David Attenborough, who talks about the beauties of the natural world. And to a certain degree, we have it all around us, but being in like the real pristine landscapes of the world that are pretty much untouched, or actually they now figured out that most of the rainforests are man-made because native people used to live or still living there, and they actually manage the rainforest, and there's an interaction between the humans and the rainforest. So that's a whole other story. But I was just fascinated, and I had to go and see it, and it was the right thing to do because you're like in the middle of a forest, and everybody's been to a forest. But there you go to the middle of a forest. There's a tree that is, you can't see the top. It's like a high-rise building,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the trunk is like the size of a house,
Mm-hmm.
like a big, even a villa house. It's just like wild.
Where are you staying while this journey is going? You said you had a tour guide, so there's a guide that's with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So that takes a little bit of the danger away from me. I'm not saying for you, right?
Yeah.
Where are you staying? Where are you sleeping as you're going further and further in? Just curious.
I love this, John. Nobody's ever asked me that such good questions. So yeah, it was actually, so we were in Quito, the capital of Ecuador. From there, it's like I said, it's a 10-hour bus drive.
Right.
Then you get on a boat on the Amazon River.
Mm-hmm.
That takes another 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's a narrow boat, but it's 10 hours on that boat, and then you get to like where one of the major cities, which is just a village with 10 people living.
And you're
then
calling
from
that a
there,
major city.
well, I don't know. I'm just maybe
That's what I mean. See what I'm saying?
For them, it's like the main spot where.
Right. This is the main hub, and it's 10 people, and you keep going. So,
And then from there, yeah, our tour guide picks us up in a small, narrow boat, like a really long kayak with he had a motor engine. And then from there was another 2 hours, because then you're like in the depth of the depth. And this tour guide, who was, by the way, he was amazing. He could mimic every sound of all the animals that were there. He recognized all the names of the animals, and he showed animals like, look at that tree, look at the tree. And we're looking at the tree, it's like it's a dead branch. No, look again. What do you mean it's a dead branch? No, look here. And then you look, and it's an owl. And it's like, how can you see that?
Right.
It's an owl like shaped as a dead branch. So he was really good at that. And then on the boat, he had his wife came with us as well, and she would cook on the boat. And then at night to sleep, they would set up. Because it's a lot of water, you go on the side, and then they prepared like a small tent. We built a small tent. You sleep in the tent, and you're like just like that. You don't move because there's like spiders.
That's
everything around you. And you wake up in the morning, and they tell you go. When you put on your shoes, check for spiders, and that's how you go about.
See, so I have no reference point for any of that. Meaning, it's I love these sorts of experiences because you're saying the bravery wasn't a factor and stuff, and I'm like, well, it is for me. But you got to see things as a result. I am sorry you got so sick in terms of that. How long did you carry? You're saying it was like the equivalent of malaria. How long did you have to carry that?
Oh, it took a while to really recover. It took a year to recover. Like I lost 10 kilograms. I don't know what that is in.
I'm terrible with these equations. I'll literally have to Google it after we're done.
Well, it was actually, if I think about it, it was about 10 to 20% of
your own body weight.
20% of my own body weight, because I couldn't eat for 2 weeks. I could eat, but it was not like my body wouldn't sustain it. So I was losing a lot of weight, and I'm already quite skinny for those who watch it on video. So yeah, that's what happened. It took a while to recover, really, and that was part of building my life again
and losing your girlfriend. And being dumped. And oh, by the way, I just did a math check. So, folks, if you saw me look down, that was me clicking in. And so it's 22 pounds for a guy that says, "Hey, I'm already skinny to begin with, and I've dropped 22 pounds." If you're watching from America, so that's a lot. Why did you think, because some people endure that, well, they don't, I don't know anybody who endured that specifically, but what I will say is, you knew you had a sign, you knew you had to do something with all of that.
Yes.
Talk to me about, do you remember that sense of knowing?
Yeah, good question.
What did it feel like?
I think it was always part of me. Like this is this 3 to 5-year-old that knows he wants to grow plants and knows.
Right.
But then you kind of get sidetracked in life, right? You think you should be doing something else, or you listen to society. You think you need to get a 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
and then you move away from your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's my theory. Then life becomes hard. Like you might become depressed. You're you're late on your bills, and all those stuff happen that are not like life is not happening for you because you're not in alignment of what you should be focusing on. But then once you find back to your origin and your purpose, and usually I think you can find it mostly in your childhood. Like what were you thinking about? What were you fascinated about?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was gifted that I kind of knew it from a child.
Right.
Easy for me later in adolescence to pick that up again. So yeah, I think it's always there, but it's not easy to always listen to it. That's another story.
Yes, see, I think that's the most fascinating part, is the listening to it, because that's when I think stuff gets done. So you created a company, Paolonia, and so you set your vision in motion. From what I've gathered so far, you talk about the fact of the direct reference to the positive impact. And I love the fact when you talked about earlier, when we were talking about Al Gore's book, getting away from just that sense of pointing fingers. Those were my words, I think. And identifying problems and then becoming more solution based. So what did it take to pull that, which sounds like a really grandiose vision?
Mm-hmm.
Was it like the sense when you described the India situation, where if you have a lot of people, it comes together fast? What was it like for you in regards to
No, it was definitely
that
the
happen?
complete. It was definitely the complete opposite.
Okay,
Starting a
okay.
business from scratch. It's like you try to explain something, people think like, "Huh? What do you mean? Low maintenance, beautiful garden?" No, it took time for it to take off, and still today, some people are like, "No, I don't understand." Or so it's constantly like refining my messaging, reshaping it. Like I'm at the point where my tagline is like, "Grow the life you want to live in." That's my tagline at the moment. So grow the life
Good one.
you want to live in.
Grow the life, grow the life you want to live.
No, sorry, I'm wrong. Grow the world. It's so fresh. I just picked it up.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, go ahead.
Grow the world you want to live in.
Boom. Grow the world you want to live in. All right. That's a winner. And who, like, when you think about it, it's who wouldn't want that? You know, it's amazing that anybody would say no to that. You know? But I see a smile light up over your face when you talk about that. And I think that speaks volumes. So talk to me in terms of some of the, and I'm going to say success stories in a little bit of a different way, rather than just I made $5 million. I mean more the beauty of having more than one positive effect in terms of this.
Yeah, it's a good question. Once again, you're really nailing it here. So John, so what happened is like I started my business and I knew I wanted to do it with a different approach. Like most of my colleagues, they just design beautiful gardens, help people to build it. That's it. That's what a regular conventional landscape architect does. They make beautiful designs. It's great work. Nothing wrong with it. There's a market for it. But I said, can we actually create something that is both beautiful, ecological, and that is also, or can potentially even be productive, as like you can eat your own food from your garden. It becomes like, I like this notion of the Garden of Eden. It feels like that it's some far thing that we can't achieve, or that we've been pushed out of the Garden of Eden. Well, actually, good news again for you. You can create the Garden of Eden here and now on the planet. We don't have to wait for it. So that was the goal. And like I said, in the beginning it wasn't easy, but then I started to really, in the beginning, we were like a little bit mild with our clients, like, oh, we still focus mostly on beautiful designs, and then step by step adding a little bit more newer techniques of regenerative farming, regenerative gardening, like quality compost. We started doing all those stuff, and then this kind of happened simultaneously. But one of my clients said we finished their garden and they loved it. I love her because she brought me to this new thing that I'm doing now. Is that this client told me like, "Hey, Matthieu, I love the garden that you've created, but you know what? I'm sick and tired of a landscape architect. I'm done. Like I want to have the experience myself. I want to get my hands dirty. I want to understand how to do it myself. I'm done with like someone doing it for me." And this is an experienced business owner that has, she had many businesses and she had some extra time. So she really wanted to do it. She had all the money that she needed to get it done by someone else, but she wanted to get
her hands in the dirt. And
exactly.
Wow.
And then I had already thought about an idea. Maybe I can start a course, because I also realized like my impact, if I'm purely doing gardening design, at most I can do, if I do really my best, I could push and maybe do 20 to 30 gardens a year. And these are luxury, high quality, that's like pushing it even with starting to grow a team. I can't really do much more. So I figured, okay, 30 times, let's say that I even work 60 years, that's not a whole lot of projects. That's a decent amount.
It's a couple hundred, right? So,
but that was already like, how can I increase my impact, both financially, because like purely designing gardens, it's not a bad business, but you have to be like top of the world to really make, like, to be the best. And I'm getting there, but it's not an overnight thing. That takes time. So, and then I had this client saying like, "Hey, I don't want you anymore." And I say, "You know what? I'm going to teach you everything that I know." It took me more than 10 years, maybe even my whole life, from the age 5 to where I was at that time, to learn how to create these type of gardens. So I'm going to teach you everything. And from that idea, I started my masterclass, the Garden of Your Dreams masterclass, which, by the way, is purely online. It only takes 9 weeks. Like, I've synthesized 10 years of studying, knowledge, experience into in a 9-week program. And I'm teaching you everything that you need to know, because there's a lot of knowledge that you don't need to know. So we're getting really to the essence. And within 9 weeks, you can create your own dream project. So I kicked it off with this client. I got a few other people in the course the first time I taught it. And it's been wildly successful. Like, people love it. They know how to do it the right way. We're also using AI. So with the help of AI, I can now teach it in 9 weeks. Without AI, if I would have done it, let's say 5 years ago, it would take me like a year to teach you everything. But now I have AI, I can do it in 9 weeks. So it's very, very interesting to see where this is going. And why I'm doing it is that now I can ripple I can teach it to my clients, and they can teach it to other people. And that's the most amazing part of my experience so far in the business, was that now I taught it to some clients, and one of my clients, her name is Anne-Sophie, and she like really stepped in and did everything what I told her. She was so eager to learn. She designed, and in week 5, we have a weekly meeting. We show the results. We look at what needs more attention, and she showed me her design for her garden, and I'm looking at it, thinking like, okay, I'm gonna give her some feedback, see how I could improve it, and I'm looking at it and I'm like starstruck, like, oh shit, I wouldn't know how to do it better myself. And she's like in week 4. So I think there's a garden designer in every one of us. So she did it, she nailed it, and then I guess her plans must have lain on the kitchen table. She had friends coming over. People asking, "Oh, this looks really cool. What is this?" "Oh, yeah, I'm designing in my own new garden. I'm doing this course." "Oh, that's so cool. Can you do it for me?" She's like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" And now she has her own clients. So again, it took me at least 5. I have a formal degree, and I'm a master in landscape architecture. It's an engineering degree. It took me 5 years she's doing it she took the course in 9 weeks. A couple of weeks later, she has her own clients.
She's now able, so the ripple effect of everything that's going on, because
Yes.
for you, has to be incredible. You talked earlier, and then I went off in a different direction. So I want to come back to, because you started to say it, and I liked it, which was the low maintenance part. And I want to now come back to that again. To me, as you were talking about these courses and things like that, where in essence others can, I never think of landscaping as low maintenance. I've never thought of that. I thought of it as extreme high maintenance. How do you make it to a point that you want to do it?
Yes. So when you take your garden project and rather than purely focusing on design, which you can still focus on, but
Sure.
you go beyond, you focus on how nature works. Because nature has worked in a certain way for billions of years.
Okay.
And look in nature, there's no maintenance. It works. Now, I'm not going to say that you can create a no maintenance garden, because then it will become just a wilderness. That's your purpose. If that's your goal, also go with it.
Yep.
But that's why I'm saying low maintenance, and we can drastically reduce it. And then this is mostly also what's covered in my book. And I like to refer to this quote from Einstein. Albert Einstein said, "Look deep into nature and you will understand everything better."
Oh, wow.
So when you can look deep into nature, and this is the 12 universal laws of nature, I found over the course of my career, that when you understand how nature works, you take that knowledge and you mimic that in your garden project, then you can drastically reduce the maintenance in your garden. Because you have to face it, John, what is the biggest thing in maintenance in your garden? And people are even in my industry, nobody dares to talk about it, because it's like, I refer to it as like the Voldemort, like in Harry Potter, and you're not supposed to say that word, but it's weeds.
Weeds.
No one
Dead
dares
stuff
to talk
and
about
weeds. Dead and weeds. You know, that it's like stuff that doesn't grow back, and weeds. So,
yes, exactly. And there's solutions to that, because what are weeds? If we look deep into nature, what are weeds? Weeds are actually just annual plants. So when you're constantly destroying your soil and even using chemicals, what has nature decided? Like in nature, if there's a landslide or a big wildfire, which doesn't happen often, what are the first plant that Mother Nature has invented? Because Mother Nature is extremely innovative. What plants have it invented to restore the health of the soil, to restore and build it from scratch?
Something from nothing, weeds. So
it's weeds. Weeds are the first plants to restore the health of the soil. So you're in your classical, conventional gardening style, where you pull out the weeds, you rake the soil, and you're actually you're telling nature like, oh, this soil is disturbed. Let's start from scratch again. So that's like the biggest game changer. You have to understand how nature works, use that knowledge, and become a successful, effortless gardener.
Let me ask you, because you've been kind enough, and we're going to get to that now, in terms of incentivizing the good folks that have joined us also today. But I want to ask before that, two things, which is number one, what anyone who's watching or listening, like, what's one thing, easy thing they could do to just begin that process? And I don't mean call you or have you come. I mean literally, like what could you do if you're just staring? I'll use myself as an example. I mean, look, I've got like a bunch of pots that look ugly, and it's like, so what's one thing that somebody could do that they could feel better about themselves, in addition to have something that's, potentially could look great?
John, I'll tell you something. It's even easier than doing something.
What is it?
Not doing something. If you ditch the chemicals, that's the first thing that I tell. Get rid of the chemicals, even if there's now chemicals that they would claim they're organic and whatever. I'm not saying that all of the chemicals are not working. Most don't work. Or what chemicals are, they're like a quick fix. They do work. I'm not saying that chemicals in your garden, if you have a problem with the pests, I'm not saying that they don't work.
Mm-hmm.
but you're making a quick fix and you're making the problem worse on the long term.
Okay.
So getting rid of the chemicals is like the first thing you can do. And then when you want to do more and really start building the soil, because that's where everything originates. Like if you want a healthy garden that is low in maintenance, you have to fix the soil, because most of the soils in our environment are polluted and are not in a good state. But there's ways that we can restore it. Again, nature is so robust and so innovative that you can do it. And the way to do it is to use high quality compost. So not just any compost, because most of the compost that you find in the gardening centers is actually also full of chemicals. And I've found now that some companies are even dyeing the compost because to make it look in a certain. So they're adding chemical paint to make it look browner or darker.
Deeper brown and look like chocolate. Right. Oh. Right.
And so that if you put that in your garden, you're making the problem worse again, and weeds will keep coming back, because that's nature's way of restoring imbalances and pollution. Is the weeds can actually. That's also why certain weeds are really amazing to restore the health of the soil. So ditching the chemicals and focus on high quality compost. And if you're like, yeah, okay, I'm not a compost expert, I don't know how to do that. Well, what I would suggest is then you go to regenerative farmers in your area. Regenerative organic farmers know how to make the real compost. And it's usually way more expensive than normal compost. It's probably like 10 times as expensive. And you'll be like, what? And I'll have to pay 10 times more. No, you actually need like a fraction of that, because the high quality compost is full of microorganisms, minerals, all the good stuff. And you put that in your yard, it's going to restore the health of the soil.
And make everything easier. That's beautiful. Listen, you said something, and I want to focus on it. We were talking about, I want to make sure I have the right context, where it was that sense of the good news is, as individuals, organizations, countries, whatever, do this, that you can turn things around within a 7-year period of time. Could you explain that better for me, so that I get it and then I get to share that with my audience? I just want to make sure I grasp it correctly.
Yeah, so they've been doing some research on the impact of regenerative farming. So regenerative farming, again, we're focusing on doing something in the way that nature has intended it. So there's a bunch of rules that you have to follow in regenerative farming, which actually in the short term it might decrease the productivity, because you need to, like, the soil needs to adjust. That's like it takes 1 to 2 to 3 years, but then productivity goes way higher. But that's like just for the farmers. But for the environment, for us, the huge benefit is that when farmers go in this type of farming, they can capture huge amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, because we have to face it, a lot of the surface of the earth is currently used in farming, because population has grown. There's huge amount of farmland all over the world. Now, if half of the farmers would adapt these systems of regenerative farming, that already there's some farmers in the US, we talked about Joel Salatin, he's doing it. But if half the farmers would adapt that system, then within 7 years we could go to pre-industrial revolution amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So that way we could pretty much solve climate change within 7 years. And that's only if half the farmers adopt it. So then it's just like, yeah. And that, not even to mention that they're producing healthy soil. The water systems, the waterways, the rivers will be cleaner again, and you could probably drink the rivers again. Like there's so many side benefits, I call them, to adapting those systems.
I go back to what you said earlier. You've said so many things that I acknowledge it for, but the one in that sense of the sense of seeking solutions, and the reminder they don't take as long and it's not as overwhelming as you think. You've given a million good examples. I'll ask you this in terms of your own arc to your authenticity. What do you see now in regards to ways that we can make either, your family a better place or your world a better place or whatever the situation is, based upon an incredible breadth of knowledge that you've accumulated in some of the most exotic and, like hard to reach places in the world. And then also the sense of just being able to take that information and do something with it. So you obviously know more than when you were backpacking through Europe. What do you see for yourself in terms of what you would share, that could make things better for you, your company, the environment, whatever?
Yeah, I think it starts with making your personal life a little bit better, because that's where everything originates. Like we started with that it's kind of easy to go into a blame, like, oh, the government is this, or oh, it's the wrong president at the moment, or oh, this is a great president, he'll change my life. Like,
right,
this is like putting your responsibility outside of yourself, and there's we should still focus on that. But what are the things you can do today? Like, since I read that Nelson Mandela, that when he was throughout his life, he always started his day by making his bed. And I read that in a book. I was like, I'm going to start doing that as well. And then I also saw that Jordan Peterson was saying it, like, if you're having trouble in your life and you're going through a hard time or whatever, like, you to be able to feel that you can move ahead in your day, you have to accomplish things, you have to do things, you have to produce something. So now the way I start my day every day is I make my bed. Like, I make it nice and clean.
Yep.
And then within a few minutes or seconds, I've accomplished something. And that's how I start my day. So if you can keep focusing on doing certain things and start with your own environment, start with your bed, then start by cleaning your house or make sure everything is neat, and then go out in your garden and do a little bit of work in your garden. You'll feel way better even. That's a whole other thing that we didn't talk about, but the science, like, if you work in your garden, you'll find a lot of the answers of problems that you might have in your life. Like, you're connecting with nature, and then it will give you new energy. So I think starting from there, and then as you like change your personal life, then you can go out and move from there, because it's this. It was even a friend of mine who told me, like, and that was similar to the time when I got really sick. Like, I was kind of preaching that, oh, we should help the world, we should do this, and there was room for that. But he said, like, yeah, dude, just practice what you preach. Like, you're here, the guy thinking we should change the world, but you're not even doing anything about it. And I'm very thankful that he said that, because it's true. Like, you have to, whatever you claim that someone else should do better, start doing it yourself first.
I think it's a really powerful way to go. Now, I will ask you this, which is, you were kind enough to make 2 opportunities available to those that have been smart enough to watch and listen to today's show. And one of them was a one-on-one session with you in regards to garden training.
Yeah, so if people feel like the urge, they want to take action, they're ready to move ahead and learn the ins and outs of becoming a not even a professional gardener, but you'll learn all the skills to become a professional gardener. Then they can book a meeting with my Calendly link. I think we can put that in the show notes.
I'll make certain that that's in the show notes. Yep.
Then we'll sit down, we'll look at the problems you're facing in your garden, and we'll see how we can solve them and what is needed to get the results you want.
And I think the way that you just so gracefully said before then, the sense that how you can solve other problems in your own world just simply by being more in tune to things like nature and gardening, that alone would be worth showing up for a 30-minute call, especially free. So thank you, folks. That link is here in the bio. Do take advantage of it. And secondly, we brought this up more than once, but Matthieu happens to be the author of the book called 12 universal laws of nature, how to use your land to its full potential. And so, can I share it, or would you say it? What are we doing in terms of this opportunity? Because I love this.
Yeah, I think it was a fun idea that I had. So whoever sends me on Instagram a DM with John Duffin, just DM me John Duffin, and the correct spelling, of course. You need to nail the correct spelling. Not that hard. It's a good name.
Just look at the name on the podcast, and that'll be it.
So whoever sends me that message, the first one will receive a free copy of my book.
That's beautiful. I'm excited. I think just for that alone, and Matthieu's Instagram ID will be here as well too. I have to acknowledge you because I feel as if one of these things. You said something and you made it so abundantly clear when you were saying, hey, it's sometimes hard to communicate when you're starting a business and people would not get it or ask questions or that sort of thing, and you try to keep tightening and fine-tuning the message. Well, I feel like you really fine-tuned it because, again, there's so many levels and layers that are here in a good way. And I think if you just go in on a surface level, I like the way things look, well, you can learn from Matthieu. And I think if you want to go in deeper levels and that sort of thing, you can learn from Matthieu. And I think that part of you being able to leverage your experience, what you've seen that so many other people have not seen and may never see. That to me is really, really powerful. So Matthieu Mehuys, I really thank you for showing up for me today. I'm very, very, very grateful.
Thank you for having me, John.
It's been a great conversation. And folks, you just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep liking, watching, sharing, telling everybody around you, and we will keep coming back for more. John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Thanks so much for tuning in, and have a great rest of the day. We'll be back with more. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.